Welcome to the Knitteratti podcast. I'm Lincoln Ashley from Knitteratti Designs. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really do hope that you're enjoying the podcast. And if you're a new viewer, you're very welcome. If you have any thoughts on anything that you see here and you want to contact me, you can do so in the comments underneath this post, in the Knitteratti group on Ravelry, on Facebook, where I'm either Lincoln Ashley or there's also a Knitteratti Designs page. On Instagram, I have a Periscope account, there's Twitter. So yeah, if you just look for Knitteratti Designs, you're going to find me pretty much everywhere. I have noticed in the last week to week and a half that there have been a lot of new subscribers, and I'm so happy about that and so happy to have you all with me, with us, I guess, because this is, I'm presenting the podcast, but this is really a group effort. You know, I try to listen to what you guys want and to give you the content that you'd like to see. So this week, as you can see, I haven't even had time to do my nails. In case you're wondering what all that cracking is, that's what happens when you wear gel nails. I don't actually use acrylic extenders, it's just the gel paint over the top, but that's what happens to mine anyway when I take the nail varnish off. So yeah, that's how busy I've been. I haven't had time to do my nails for the podcast. And it's been a long week, let me tell you. I'm actually recording this a day early because I do now have a Patreon account, and my Patreon subscribers, and you can subscribe from $1 a month. My Patreon subscribers will be getting this a day early, along with a lot of extra content that I put out. Sorry, I really hate when it makes that scratching noise. I'll just see if I can throw that there. There we go. So yeah, my Patreon subscribers will get this on Wednesday, and everybody else will get it as normal on Thursday. And this is still making that noise there. Because that's one of my puppies. That's enough, thank you. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. So yeah, I don't have a lot to show you this week, even though I have been very busy. So I'll just finish this row. I'm just doing this so that you'll have something to watch while I'm sitting here, because we do actually have a lot of content for today. So you'll probably all remember the stole that I'm working on with the Dye Ninja yarn. So I've probably gotten that much done during the week, which for me isn't a hell of a lot. And the reason for that is the second thing that I've cast on, I finished this one last week for those of you who are watching, and I'm sorry about the hand. My hand and my puppy's mouth met during some bubbles. She likes to jump and bite at the bubbles, and I know this, and I just moved my hand the wrong way and it ended up in there. But I digress. The next thing that I've cast on, I can't actually show you because it's a design that I'm doing for a submission, so I kind of have to keep it to myself. But in order to get the yarn for this, I had to pop out and buy some last Friday. Now, if you're a Patreon member, I did a video after I actually did it in the car, so I did it right after. And my experience in the shop was not brilliant. So if you want to know more about that, I think the video is called Alpaca versus Llama or something like that. I just uploaded it. I didn't even think too much on the title. So that is very much my recounting of what happened. Like I said, this hasn't been a great week. I wanted bamboo. They didn't have any, fair enough. So I got some cotton. Now, I'm not a big fan of this stuff, so I'm curious, do any of you out there have a recommendation for cotton that doesn't fall apart? I know it's the nature of it. I know it's that type of yarn. it doesn't really grip onto itself, and I know that it grows. And these are properties that I do like, except when I'm trying to get it neatly off the ball. I do find that I get an awful lot of yarn twist with it, and again, anybody who watched last week knows that I have given some methods for dealing with yarn twist, but for some reason when it comes to cotton, and it does seem to be this brand of cotton for me, it's still a big issue, and I get an awful lot of yarn twist. So anyhow, there is a sneak peek at some of the yarn that I'm using. And I'm sorry that I can't show you the design, but that's kind of part and parcel of doing a submission. Now, while I was also there, and this might give you an idea of why the video is called Alpaca versus Llama, they are not the same animal. They're not. Even if the person in the shop tells you it is, alpacas and llamas, not the same animal. Anyhow, I didn't actually pay $3.50 for this. I think I paid €2 or $2.50. I don't really recall, but I bought quite a number of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I bought 5 or 6 balls of this, just because it was on sale. And I mean, yeah, it's only 20% alpaca, but it's just going to be a little bit easier for me if I want to, to maintain it and what have you. We're basically living on a building site. Everything is constantly covered in dust and dirt, and everything has to be washed constantly. That's why if any of you have caught a glimpse of my floors, I've given up. I clean them, excuse me, I'll probably brush them once or twice a day, but it's just a losing battle. So yeah, I need stuff that I can clean, if I'm going to be making a jumper out of it, or a cardigan, which is probably what this is destined for, or maybe a blanket. Yeah, I need to be able to deal with it fairly easily. So as you can see, it's machine washable, cool tumble dry, which I probably wouldn't do. I mean, I will wash it in the machine, but it'll be dried either on the washing line or on a radiator. So that's what I bought from there. And I've just realised I'm making the sound, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't be. I hate it when people do that. So, on to the main content of today. So there is a separate video concerning this yarn on YouTube. Well, actually, you're going to be able to find it on my Patreon account. It is not just for patrons. This video can be viewed by anybody who wants to. It is a public video. And it's going to become clear why that's so important in a few minutes. So, this is green elephant yarn, and I was expecting to be able to show you a little bit of this knit up today. I was casting on, I don't know if you recall last week, I showed some of the minis, and I said I wanted to do a project with that, and that I would need basically a darker yarn to go with it, and I was going to use this, which is actually showing up a little bit brighter on camera than I think is actually the case in real life, but it doesn't really matter anyway. I've worked with this yarn before, I've worked with the dyer before, hadn't had any difficulties until last night. So, in the interests of this podcast, I am doing reviews, and I'm doing honest reviews. I think integrity is important, and if something isn't working out, I think it's important that I don't just give you the everything is awesome version. This isn't Legoland. We don't all go around singing the song. It's important to be honest. So, once I put this on the Swift last night, and once I started to cake it up, it was very clear to me that there was a problem with the skein. If I'm honest, it was clear to me that the skein wasn't as I expected before I put it on the Swift, and clearly I should have started recording then. I'm sorry I didn't. But I waited until the problem was very evident, and then I set up the camera and I made the recording. So, if you'd like to pause here and go and watch it, that's fantastic. If you've decided you don't want to watch the video, you can probably intimate what happened from what I'm about to say. You know how when you start to cake up your yarn and it gets all tangled on the Swift? And I don't just mean that it gets caught a little and you can adjust the yarn and you can continue to cake. I mean the yarn was doubled over on itself. You couldn't actually cake it up. without having to intervene anyway. So you can see in the video that I have to take the cake off the winder, put it back through. Actually, so you know when the yarn is kind of, no, I'm not going to be able to show you properly with this. What's the best way to show it? So you have a loop in it, and yarn on the Swift shouldn't double back on itself like that, but in this case it does. And then you have the yarn that you're trying to wind, so is coming through it. So instead of just being able to pull it and get it, there's a loop and you have yarn going through it. And if I'm not explaining that very well, the video is there. I show it clearly in the video. And, you know, I think it's self-explanatory. So I reached out. Having made this video, I wanted to give an opportunity for the dyer to respond because, as I've said, I've knit with this yarn before, hadn't have a problem. So what the response that I was expecting was something along the lines of, yes, we're aware that this happens, here's the easiest way to fix it, you know, something positive. It is not the response that I got. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read the responses. I am not going to print the responses anywhere because I did ask the dyer if she would like me to make the response public in writing, so that obviously when I read it aloud, I'm going to do my best to be impartial, but there will be a certain amount of inflection, and I can't help that. You know, when somebody reads something aloud, there is an amount of inflection that comes with it. But the dyer has opted that she doesn't want me to put it in the show notes, so I'm just going to read it aloud. I'm going to read it start to finish first of all, and then I will go back and give some of my views. Just in terms of disclaimers, what I'm giving here is my opinion. Your mileage may vary. So, you know, if I say something, I'm not going to keep saying in my opinion, in my opinion. If I'm saying it, it is my opinion. If it is not my opinion, if I'm quoting somebody else, I will make that clear. If you feel that I haven't been clear on a point, please do contact me, and I'll do my best to clarify and to respond to that. So, I'm just going to take down my laptop here, and unfortunately, as I said, I can't really let you see it. Okay, so here is my initial message. I've actually done this through Instagram because this is the way that I've contacted this dyer before. Okay, so again, the dyer is Green Elephant Yarn. Hi, I don't know if you've been watching my podcast or not, but I've been doing reviews of the different tools and materials that I use. I was caking up one of your skeins this evening and ran into difficulties, so I made a video as I was planning on presenting the yarn in tomorrow's recording anyway. Unfortunately, it was a very frustrating experience and, although I know this issue isn't unique to your yarn and will be making this clear, it is your product that's in the video, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to respond. You can find the video here, link included. It will be going live to Patreon supporters tomorrow and to everybody else on Thursday. I'm just looking for the next part. Okay, so the response that I got, the first response. Hi, firstly, I'm sorry that you had issues winding some of my yarn. Can I ask what the issue was with winding the yarn? Also, that link doesn't seem to be working. It says video unavailable. Fair enough, that was my fault. I didn't realise it was video unavailable. Okay. For me, yes, the issue was with winding. I could tell that it wasn't right before I even got on the Swift. The link should be working now. And here is the response that I received. I have just watched the video. I am trying very hard not to be angry about this. The reason that you had issues is because you did not have the yarn on the Swift correctly before you... Apologies, I'm just finding the rest of this. Yep. The reason that you had issues is because you did not have the yarn on the Swift correctly before you started. The yarn comes to me from my supplier with 3 ties on it. I do not remove these ties during the dyeing process or at any time. They remain in the exact same place in the skein throughout the process. I always check them myself. Once the yarn is on the Swift, it should be checked to make sure that all the strands... And for some reason she cuts off there. So I respond, thank you for your response. I will be sure to let my viewers know how angry you are at your customers. Just on to the next screenshot. Yeah, sorry. My response. Thank you for your response. I will be sure to let my viewers know how angry you are at your customer tomorrow. And please bear in mind, I did buy this yarn at full price. I bought 2 hanks. Okay. So she is continuing here from her last response. So, of yarn are inside the ties, i.e. all going the same direction. Then there will not be any issues like you have had. I would also like to say that I'm a very small business working hard on my own. Posting this video could have a negative effect on me. I know it can be frustrating when these things happen. I often fight with my winder and very sorry that you had this experience. I'm not angry. I said I was trying not to be angry about it. I'm not looking to argue about this. I value you as a customer and I'm very sorry you feel this is a fault of mine. So, sorry, I'm just making sure that... Okay, I seem to be missing a screenshot and I want to make sure that I'm giving you everything. Okay. To be honest, I'm not certain how much sense this is making because I'm reading it out, but as I said, I haven't been allowed to put the text public, and I'm going to respect that, even though I probably could if I wanted to, but fair enough. So where was my next one? Yeah. I seem to be missing some of my comment, but I pointed out that I know she's a small business. And I comment, I quote, "From me, by the way, I've gone out of my way to promote your business in the past, so I'm extremely disappointed in your attitude. There aren't many small dyers that have pattern designers promoting their yarn for free. You should feel free to respond to my video in the comments." Then she comes back, "I really hope I haven't offended you in some way. If the skein is unusable, I would be happy to send you another." I respond, "I've gotten your response from my viewers. It's not what I was expecting, but I will put it to them and let them form their own opinions. Thanks. I was unaware that this is from her. I was unaware that this conversation would be public. I thought you wanted me to respond in the comments section of your video." From me, my original post stated that I wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to the issue. That was the whole point of showing you the video before the general public. If you feel that you've been taken up the wrong way, then you can try to correct my misunderstanding in the comments. From her, I misunderstood. I thought you wanted me to respond on YouTube. I was just conversing with you and explaining the way I received the dye skeins. How will you be sharing my response with your viewers? I will most likely read your response in the podcast. If you like, I can make a copy of the entire conversation in the show notes. If I put it in the show notes, then there can be no misinterpretation about what you said due to any inflection that I might use when reading. Okay, I don't seem to have any more of the screenshots. To be fair, what I'm doing here is very difficult because I don't have access to these comments from my laptop. It's on my phone. I'm using my phone for recording. So basically, it was said to me that just reading them aloud was fine, and there was no comment made on putting them up in writing, so I presume that she doesn't want them up in writing. And again, she reiterated that she would replace the skein. So here's my take on this. I contacted a dyer as somebody who has worked with them before several times, and the response I got was, "I've just watched the video, I'm trying very hard not to be angry about this," and then I get blamed for putting the skein on the Swift incorrectly. Now, ladies and gents, how many times do you think I've wound yarn? Do you think I know how to put a skein on correctly? And do you think that I know what happens if a skein is not on correctly? And do you think I can fix that? I'll tell you, I do know how to put it on correctly. I have had this issue with yarn, when winding yarn, 3 times. Once it was so bad that I just left the yarn. The second time I got the yarn at a discount because I knew that it had been reskeined. I knew I was going to have trouble with it, so I didn't pay full price for it. And this I wasn't expecting to have any issues with until I opened up the skein, and I could tell that it was longer than I would have expected. So I knew that it had likely been rewound, but whether it had or it hadn't makes little difference. It was a very frustrating experience, and like I said, I don't expect to be told about how angry a dyer is when I go to them as a customer and say, I've had a problem. Now, the winding problem was very clearly nothing to do with how I put it on the Swift. The problem was, and I will try to illustrate it here. So if I just take some of this yarn off the cake and okay. So pretend that this is the skein, okay? When this skein was tied, and it doesn't matter to me whether it was done by the dyer or whether it was done by the supplier for the dyer, some of these strands got moved over here, creating this loop. Okay? Now, if you saw a bigger example of this, you would find that this loop, if I were to move it under here, we now have strands going through it. So when I try to wind that, it gets caught on this loop that was never meant to be here. Now, the reason why I say it makes no difference to me if it's the dyer or if it's the supplier who did that, when you put out a product, and it's the same for me, when you put it out, you need to be happy with it. And if you're not happy with it, you don't put that back onto your supplier. You made the choice of putting it out there, not anybody else. So you had the choice before you sold it to rewind it yourself and to make sure that it was correct. The book has to stop somewhere, and you can't keep pushing it back and pushing it back. So, needless to say, I'm not going to be using this. This was going to be in my next pattern. I've already done several patterns with this dyer, and to say that I've had a complete lack of support would be fairly accurate. I don't think I've even gotten a repost of any of my patterns that I've put out by this particular dyer. And I mean, that's my own fault. When I worked with their yarn the first time and I got no support, I should have just left it at that. But I wanted to support local, And when I ordered a custom dye job off them and it didn't work out, I still paid them for it. And I still paid them full price because I didn't want them to eat that. I mean, again, more fool me. I ordered a lavender skein and it came out this mottled pinky lavender colour. And like I said, I didn't want them to have to eat that cost. So I paid full price for it. Now, they did offer to send me another one, which I said, no, you don't need to do that. I know it's expensive. And this is what I get when I say I have had a difficulty. Instead of something like, even something as simple as, I'm sorry, how do I put this right? At the most basic end. What would have been lovely is, I know this happens sometimes, it happens to everybody. Here is how you fix it. And then I could have done a video on how it was fixed and how nice it was to contact this person and get some advice on what the issue was. But instead, the response that I got was, I'm trying very hard not to be angry about this. The reason you had issues is because you did not have the yarn on the Swift correctly before you started. Yeah. I think that says it all. So I will not be working with this. I will never be buying from Green Elephant again. Your mileage may vary. It's completely up to you. I now have 2 of these. That's about €50 down the drain. I have to go out and try and buy new yarn, probably today because it's now putting me behind on my schedule. So yeah, I am pretty damn disgusted, to be honest. And then once she realises that she's put her foot in it, and I point out that I will be letting you know how angry I am. And she did know at that point. She knew that I was asking for feedback. So once I pointed it out, all of a sudden there's backpedaling. Oh, I'm a small dyer, this could really affect me. Do you know what? I had an issue during the week where I had given somebody a pattern and they're knitting it, and they put up something that I felt would have a negative effect on me, and I wasn't given the right of response. I absolutely wasn't, and I felt that I should have been. And you know what I did? I very politely contacted them. I did not tell them that I was angry. I did express that I was worried, that I was very concerned about people's opinion. And I might point out, I didn't charge a cent for that pattern. You know, people frequently contact me about patterns, and more often than not, it's because they haven't read it properly or they've misinterpreted it. And I do not respond to them in telling them how angry I am that they didn't read it properly, and it's clearly their fault. That's just not professional. And to be honest, like, fine, you're a small dyer, you're a small business, so am I. I've done my best to help you out, and the best you could do for me is to come back with how angry you are. You know, and then as soon as the backpedaling, oh, you've misinterpreted me. How have I misinterpreted you telling me how you're trying not to be angry? And you're saying, at one point I believe you said, I'm not angry. I said I'm trying not to be. Did that actually come through? Like I said, I'm doing this from screenshots and I am finding it very difficult. Oh yeah, sorry, I might have missed this. When she was saying about the yarn has to be inside the ties going in the same direction. I often fight with my winder. I'm very sorry you've had this experience. I'm not angry. I said I was trying not to be angry about it. I'm not looking to argue about this. I value you as a customer. I'm very sorry that you feel this is a fault of mine. Okay. Why didn't she start out with, I'm sorry that you feel this is a fault of mine. I value you as a customer. How can I help? Because I'm sorry, when you tell me I'm trying not to be angry here, actually, yeah, you are angry. If you are trying not to be something, then it means that you are something in the first place, or else you couldn't be trying to not be it, if that makes sense. So, as I said, there will be a link to this video. I will put it in the comments. It will link to my Patreon page, and you should be able to see it. If you cannot see it, please contact me and let me know. I think it's important that you are able to form your own opinion on this and not just take mine. But yeah, as I said, I will never buy from this dyer again. I don't consider that to be an acceptable response to a customer. So, there you go. That's really what I wanted to cover today in terms of what I'm working on and what's coming up. I'm just putting my laptop back up at the top here. If the dyer decides, and again that's Green Elephant yarn, if she decides that she does want me to put up screenshots of the conversation so that people can read it for themselves rather than having me stuttering over it, then that's absolutely fine. She can contact me and I will put it in the show notes. I would also expect that there should be a response under this video, so you might like to check in the comments and just see if there is anything down there that you'd like to read. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the more technical part of the podcast. I like to do technique every week. So I am going to pause here and just get a little bit more knit on this, and I'm going to do travelling stitch or twisted stitch as it's sometimes known, or 1x1 cable as it's also sometimes known. So if you followed me this far and you don't want to continue on, thank you very much for watching. I hope that you found something in this podcast that you can enjoy. If there's anything that you do want me to cover, please by all means let me know. I'm here to provide what you want to see. You know, this is definitely a community effort. I don't think I've already mentioned it, but I do have a mailing list. You will also find the link to that in the show description, and probably also in the comments and in the Ravelry group and what have you. So if you want to sign up for that, that is completely free. You will get a welcoming email. If it takes a few minutes for that to arrive, please bear with me because I'm sending those by hand. So if you were to sign up, say, at midnight and I'm asleep, you might not get it for a few hours. But that's basically because, again, I am also a small business and I can't really afford to pay for the automated version. So yeah, I'm doing it all myself. Which isn't a top story, it's just an explanation, and I'm very sorry if anybody has to wait for them. Once you sign up for the newsletter, you do get a link to a free pattern. And that is what I'm going to be covering in this next section. It's the twisted stitch that is used as part of the Addy-Tomb pattern. So again, thank you very much for watching this far, and I hope to see some of you again in just a moment. And we're back. Hey everyone. So as you can see, I've just knitted a little bit more on this swatch. It's just basic stockinette with some garter stitch around the edge so that it doesn't roll. Doesn't really matter, just did it that way in the hopes that you'll be able to see it a little bit better. So today, as I said, we're going to work a little bit on twisted stitch, or travelling stitch, or 1x1 cable, however you want to refer to it. In the Addy-Tomb pattern, which is where I use this stitch, I would refer to it as travelling stitch, as the stitch literally travels across an area. So yeah, that's just a little bit of an aside, so that you might have, you know, something to call it. Okay, I'll just try and focus here a little bit more. See what's happening is this is, yeah, I put the knitting behind it so that the needles don't make noise, and then I tried, there we go. I tried to get it to focus and it focuses on the wrong thing. Okay, so I'm just going to knit a few stitches in here just to give myself a little space to work in. Now, okay, so to do a twisted stitch, there are a few ways to do it. The first one I'm going to do will twist this stitch to the right, like that. So you insert the needle into the front of the second stitch on the needle and you knit it, okay? So I have one stitch here and I still have this stitch back here. That has not come off the needle yet. And then I'm going to knit into the front of the first stitch. So now I have 2 stitches on the right needle, 2 on the left needle, and I'm just going to drop those. So you can see what I've done is I've pulled one stitch over the other. You see that little twist there? It'll become more obvious in a minute. You'll be able to get a better look at that twist. So I'll just do that again. Okay, so the needle into the second stitch on the left needle, into the front of the stitch. And I knit that. So I now have my new stitch on the right needle. I have the old stitch on the left needle. Then I knit again into the front of the first stitch on the left needle. Gives me with the 2 new stitches on the right needle, the 2 old stitches on the left needle. Just drop them off the left, and there we have a twisted stitch. So we are twisting to the right. Okay, now let's twist to the left. So to twist to the left, again, I'm going into the second stitch, but I'm going to knit into the back of the second stitch on the needle, okay? So this is quite difficult to do when you're doing it through a camera, as your perspective changes a little. So that is into the back of the second stitch on the left needle, okay? So I hope that's clear. See, there's the first stitch, there's the second stitch. So I'm knitting that, and then I knit into the front of the first stitch on the left needle. Okay, so you see how that's twisted in the opposite direction. So there's the twist to the right, and there we have a twist to the left. So I'm just going to do that again. So I put the needle into the back of the second stitch. Okay, so I'm knitting the second stitch through the back loop. Okay, so 1 new stitch on the right needle, 2 old stitches on the left needle. Then I knit into the front of the first stitch on the left needle. So I now have 2 new stitches on the right needle and my 2 old stitches on the left, and I just drop those. Okay, so I think you can see that where this stitch is now twisted towards the left. I'm just going to finish out this row. Just to knit. Now, as I'm doing a garter edge, the first 3 stitches are knit. Now, where is that twist? I'm going to purl you. Okay. So, to continue with this twist on the back, so the back of the stitch. Now, I'm going to prepare you. This is going to take a little bit of patience. Sorry, my camera's moving. A little bit of patience and a little bit of practice, okay? So if you need to put in a lifeline, do that. If you don't like it and you don't want to use the travelling stitch, don't. Take it out of the pattern altogether. Just do it in plain stockinette or put in something that you do like. Pattern isn't, it's meant to be a guide. It's not meant to be the be all and end all. Okay, so the easiest way I find to do this is to put the needle in as though to knit through the back loop and just tug it a little and give myself a little extra yarn in that loop, okay? So that when I come around, I insert the needle to purl. Okay, so I want to, there, I'll do that again. I think I'm losing focus here. I am hoping to get a better camera at some point if Patreon takes off for me, but we'll have to wait for that for a little while. So I've given myself a little extra yarn here, and I am now inserting the needle to purl through the back loop, okay? So there's purl, that's the second stitch on the needle, and then I am purling into the front of the loop through the first stitch on the needle, okay? Now the thing is, I'm actually showing you how to twist this in both directions. You actually only ever twist it in one direction in the Additoon pattern, but this should help a little, just give you some idea of how it's done. So I'm going to do that a second time. So I'm inserting the needle as though to knit through the back loop, and I'm just giving it a little tug. You see how I've gotten some extra yarn there, okay? So then I insert the needle to purl through the back loop. That is the second stitch on the left needle. So I've purled that, then purling the first stitch on the needle, and there we go. So let's come over here. Let's see, these ones are twisting in the other direction. So in order to do that, this one is the easier one. I just purl into the second stitch on the left needle, and I'm purling into the front of the loop. And then, okay, you're going to find that these want to pull over each other a little. So what I do is I will just grab that stitch with my nail and pull it back. And then I'm purling into the first stitch on the left needle, okay? So we'll do this again. Purling into the second stitch, into the front of the second stitch on the left needle. Okay, just pull that stitch back slightly, give yourself a little room, and then purl into the front of the first stitch on the needle. And there we go. Okay, and then I'm just going to knit the band, and hopefully I've gotten these to line up properly, because I wasn't exactly checking. Once you read the pattern, I do give the right stitch counts to get things to line up. Okay, I've clearly had a bit of a boo-boo here. I'm not going to go back and fix it. Oh, do you know what I've done? That's a yarn over. So that's where I haven't brought my yarn through my needles properly to purl. I've actually somehow brought it over the needle. So you can see here, if we just ignore that boo-boo. Now, you can see how I have the first twisted stitch to the right here. And then there's a second one that we've just done on that side. Probably see it more clearly here. So there's the first one that we did on the right side, and there's the second one that we did on the wrong side. And these ones aren't showing up as clearly, I'm afraid, because of my boo-boo, but these are the ones that are in the pattern anyway. So had these lined up properly, they would have looked the same as these, but in the other direction. And I'm not going to have time to redo this video either, I'm afraid, so it is going to remain like that for the moment. If you need any more help with the Additoon pattern, it doesn't matter if you've gotten it for free, contact me. I'm very happy to help. I've already had some people contact me, and you know, once I'm awake, I'll get back to you fairly quickly. You know what? That's bugging me. I'm going to undo these. I am, because I can't send it off looking like that. Oops. See, picking up stitches and everything in this video is extra value. So I have dropped this. I'll just pick it up and no. There we go. Yeah, clearly this is, like I said, it's been one of these weeks. Nothing is working. I was supposed to have a landscaper come today. He hasn't even bothered to ring us and let us know he isn't coming. We just know he isn't going to show up. He was supposed to confirm that he was coming. So that was one twist, by the way. You can't just unpick them when you're undoing a twist, unfortunately. The easiest way to do it is to actually let them come off the needle and then pick them up. And there, that's where my yarn over was. Okay. So I'll have to twist this stitch onto this one, so I'm going to purl 2 here. And if you want to know more about how I'm reading that, I am going to do a more fleshed out Patreon video that will go through the techniques for the shaping for that particular shawl, and it'll talk through the whole process, and I'll actually knit up a swatch of the shawl, not like this, not on a square swatch, I mean an actual proper swatch of the shawl. All right, just drop that. And that will be available from $1 a month. So I'm sure if you sign up for Patreon, you can probably stop paying after a month. You know, if anybody wants any more information on how Patreon works, let me know. I don't want to bore you with it, or, you know, I feel like I'm doing too much sales, which is not what I'm trying to do. You absolutely don't need to go and pay for that video if you don't want it. Now, there we go. Now that I fixed it, you can see the twist to the right. Okay, so there's the first one that we did on the right side and the one that I did on the wrong side. And then again, the first one we did on the right side and the one on the wrong side, twisting to the right. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe. It really, really has been helping me to get out there. And the more people that we can get in the community, the better. I have opened a general chat thread on the Knitteratti group on Ravelry. So Knitteratti is spelled Knitteratti. So that's 4 T's. I know a lot of people seem to spell it with 3, but I've gone with 4 just to be difficult. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I suppose that's it. Take care.